I don't see it as opposed to positive, constructive.
Western and Eastern technology.
I hope that the insiders
This is a way of progress.
The point about it is this week's the people who are run our government.
I spy
Heroes and villains.
the final hour to protest. The person benefits.
We get a lot of real problems.
We look at Jim Allen's courtroom play, Perdition. The clerk of the court announces the case.
In the case of Dr. Miklos Yaran versus Ruth Kaplan, the plaintiff, Dr. Yaran, claims that the defendant, Ruth Kaplan, did falsely and maliciously write and publish a pamphlet entitled, I Accuse. On page 14 of the said pamphlet are the following words which form the substance of the alleged libel. I accuse certain Jewish leaders of collaborating with the Nazis in 1944. Among them was Dr. Yaran. He knew what was happening in the extermination camps and bought his own life and the lives of others with the price of silence.
Good evening. The beginning of proceedings in Jim Allen's controversial courtroom drama, Perdition. You won't have seen the play before, and except for the short extracts we'll be showing tonight, you're not likely to see it again, because it seems as if no theatre wants to put it on. It's about a libel action in which the plaintiff is really the accused. What he's accused of is collaboration, yes, collaboration with the Nazis in their extermination of nearly 1 million Hungarian Jews in 1944. Tonight, Jim Allen, the playwright, is here with others to defend his play, and he meets for the first time the historian of the Holocaust, Martin Gilbert, who, together with leaders of the Jewish community in Britain, criticizes the play. Perdition was due to open at London's Royal Court Theatre on January 22nd, not on the main stage, but in the smaller theatre upstairs. The court has often championed contentious works, and the play's director, Ken Loach, wasn't unduly concerned at the prospect of controversy, given the highly controversial nature of the play. But 36 hours before the play should have opened, the court's artistic director took it off, calling it selective and possibly a dishonest piece of writing. Ken Loach then approached a number of other West End theatres, some empty, but without success. Elsewhere, there was great interest at Sheffield, but the script was returned. The Exchange Theatre Company in Manchester turned it down, partly for its latent anti-Semitism. The Almeida told us they wanted nothing to do with it. Ken Loach suggests Zionist groups at work.
It was taken off, as far as we can see, because of pressure by a political group. They operated on a two-pronged attack. One was to create a kind of outrage in the public press, and then to manipulate behind the scenes with members of the Royal Court Council to meet them in secretly and to exert pressure backstage.
Max Stafford Clark, the Royal Court's artistic director, denies that pressure made him take it off. He came to the independent view that to stage the play would cause great distress to sections of the community. The play is based on the events which led to the extermination of Hungarian Jews and accuses Zionist leaders of collaborating with Nazi Adolf Eichmann in sending them to the gas chambers. Eichmann was tried in Jerusalem, found guilty, and hanged. The play argues that somehow his partners in carrying out the slaughter were Hungary's Jewish leaders.
What would you say was Eichmann's biggest problem, Dr. Yaron?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, he came to Budapest to help murder 1 million Jews. His reputation had preceded him. Do you not agree that in order to successfully carry out his killing operation, he first of all had to dispel the fears of his victims, to hoodwink them?
I suppose so.
Now, do you agree, Dr. Yaron?
Yes.
And what better way of achieving this than by enlisting the help of leaders like yourself and Dr. Rudolf Kastner.
That is a lie. It was not like that.
But you carried out his orders. You did everything that Eichmann asked of you.
We had no choice, but we did not support him. Not in the way you mean.
What was the first instruction that Eichmann gave you at that meeting in the Hotel Majestic? Well, you have already referred to it, Dr. Yaron. It was to inform the leaders of every Jewish community in Hungary that henceforth they were to carry out the orders of the Central Jewish Council in Budapest. Is that not correct?
Yes.
I have here a copy of the manifesto. The Central Jewish Council has been granted the right of absolute disposal over all Jewish manpower. You women and girls, men and boys, are all executors of the instructions issued by the Central Council. You must realize that every decision, however momentous it may be, is the outcome of official intervention, and that the life of every individual and the existence of the community as a whole depends on such instructions being fully observed. The right of absolute disposal. Why do you think Eichmann gave such powers to the council, Dr. Yarrow?
Whatever the reason, we were in no position to argue.
But you were in a position to cooperate.
We had no choice.
I suggest, Dr. Yaron, that the very first step along the road which led to the destruction of Hungarian Jewry was when you put your names to that manifesto.
It was the only valid response.
Martin Gilbert, is the play there based accurately on real historical events?
It is, and then it uses them really to pervert the history. Of course, Dr. Yaron's only response was to do as ordered, but he was not ordered to destroy the Jews. This was not the first step on their road to destruction. The first step was the Nazi determination to destroy them and the setting into mechanism of an SS commando led by Eichmann to go into Hungary and to work out the means to deceive the Jews and then to murder as many as possible.
Is that account of what happened when the Jewish leaders, including the Yaron figure, Kastner, went to the Hotel Majestic, is that true?
It's not true in the sense that, like everything based upon Mr. Brenner's work here, it's very simplistic, very simplified. It's not historical in any academic or precise sense. Perhaps this wouldn't matter, but of course the lives of hundreds of thousands of people are not something really to reduce to an academic debate. These are disgraceful allegations in this play which go far beyond any historical pedantic point.
Dr. Roth, you were in Budapest at the time when the Jewish leaders, and of course in the play it says they're from the Jewish Council, but I think these were people from the Jewish Rescue Committee, when they went to see Eichmann, was there not some question of doing a deal with Eichmann?
There was a question of doing a deal. The members of the Rescue Committee took up negotiations which originally started in Slovakia between the Slovakian Jewish Rescue Committee and the Nazis of saving the life of 1 million Jews against certain material compensation which the Germans badly wanted.
Jim Allen, disgraceful, Martin Gilbert called it.
Yeah. In 1953, Hungarian leader Kastner was found guilty of collaboration in the Jerusalem courts. The play quotes 9 lines. The play quotes the judgments of Israeli Supreme Court Judge Levy. He says, not Jim Allen, the Jews of the ghettos would not have trusted the Nazi or Hungarian rulers, but they had trust in their Jewish leaders. Eichmann and others used this known fact as part of their calculated plan to mislead the Jews. They were able to deport the Jews to their extermination by the help of Jewish leaders.
And this judgment was overruled in the Supreme Court, and in a play which is meant to be a dialogue, it is actually atrocious not to put in this fact in the play. Of course, you can have a debate as to whether it was possible to squeeze some rescue in this circumstance of appalling brutality and threat. But you can't simply put a one-sided point of view on every element, every so-called fact. Every fact in this play is without its context, the context of the Nazi determination to murder every Jew in Europe.
Jim Allen?
It was overruled because the Israeli government identified themselves with the fate of Kastner. They had to defend Kastner because they too were on trial.
Actually, this isn't true, because differing from our system of justice, it is possible in Israel to overrule a judgment on a point of fact and not on a point of law. And in this case, it was overruled on a point of fact. And again, you cannot bring to trial Jews who in the main are dead, because of course most Zionist leaders were murdered by the Nazis, and the Nazis did not differentiate when people came out of the cattle trucks, Zionists to the left kindly, and non-Zionists to their death. I'm sure when Hugo Gryn came to Auschwitz, nobody said to him, by the way, are you a Zionist family? We'll rescue you. It is a travesty, and it is actually disgraceful that something like this should even be debated as if somehow there is a right and a wrong here. There is simply an allegation against Jews which has no basis in fact.
Lenny Brenner, author of Zionism in the Age of Dictators. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, I'm a historian, so I just look at the record. Now, we know what Eichmann thought about Kastner, because while Eichmann was in hiding in Buenos Aires, he made 67 tapes, okay? Now, this is what Eichmann said about Kastner, quote, an ice-cold lawyer and a fanatical Zionist, he agreed to help the Jews from resisting deportation and even kept order in the collection camps if I would close my eyes and let a few hundred or a few thousand young Jews emigrate illegally to Palestine. This was a good bargain